And we are live tonight for the first time in a while for SagaBorn with a cool batch of characters here. They're going to help me out with some new rules stuff. We're going to be going through the new Lifepath system that I wrote for the SagaBorn 1.5 book. And what that does is the first SagaBorn book, I didn't build a whole lot of the world into it because I saw it more as a generic role-playing system. But the biggest complaint I got was everybody wanted the world built into the system because they're like, there's all these neat things, but we have no idea how they work. And so we started doing that more with 1.5, but I was still having a hard time. Like, if I'm there to help you build your character, you can say, hey, Mike, what's an elfling? And I can tell you very quickly. If I'm not there, that's a lot harder. And sadly, I can't be everywhere at once. So what I did is I made a life path. So it's a way for people to either choose a path that fits within the world by rolling dice, or to give you a quick set of options where you go, oh, I get now what an Archeon is, or how a Berserker would fit into this world. So you don't have to stick with the dice rolling, but that's there for some people who just like to, well, I'm not quite sure. I'll roll and see what it gives me. In fact, there's an old 3rd edition book that has a bunch of backgrounds. And the thing I like about it the most is whenever I have people use that book to build their character, they would roll a die and they'd say, no, that is definitely not my character. She's actually this. And I was like, oh, by rolling it, it actually told them what they wanted, what they didn't want, and made them decide where their character was going. And I think that's really neat too. So that's what we're going to be doing today. And let's have everyone introduce themselves, starting with Paul and heading down the line.
I'm Paul Balachik. I'm Mike's brother. I play SagaBorn quite a bit with Mike at conventions and the Renaissance Festival, and, well, up until COVID, everywhere with you.
I'm John Hermson. I've been a gamer since I was a kid, and SagaBorn is something that I've been able to kind of splash in and out of a little bit over the last couple of years.
I'm Dane, but these guys might call me Danny. Next.
All right. I'm Ethan Siegel. I met Mike and Paul and subsequently everyone else about 10 years ago at a con in Tennessee. And I started playing SagaBorn because Mike and our other friend Brian Cooksey went and started saying, hey, you know what? We want a rules-light role-playing game that's going to be friendly to experienced players, but is also going to be friendly to brand new players. And I may have started the first other side of the country SagaBorn campaign that's outside of not just Tennessee, but the Mid-South, the East Coast, the other side of the Rocky Mountains. So over here in Washington State, we've been running the SagaBorn campaign since the earliest days of SagaBorn 1.0. And we had a mix of experienced players, brand new players who've never gamed before. And even despite COVID, the campaign's still ongoing and it's taken on a life of its own. So happy to see what sort of new characters we'll be creating today.
Awesome. All right, so who has their dice ready and want to be the first one to jump into this life path?
All right.
I'm
ready to go.
Paul is ready to go. So I have shared up the Google Drive book, which is available online. Anyone can click over and check this out and look at it. They can't edit it like Paul can. So Paul, don't edit it as we're going down.
I already accidentally realized I could do that.
The first thing you do is you're going to determine what species you are. And that's also new in the new version. Danny and I were talking about how to move away from calling things races and actually make the word mean something. And so what we came up with was, well, let's use the term species, because then, like, elves in at least the world of the Dark Return, elves can't have babies with Terrans like dwarves or humans. Dwarves and humans can have babies together. So that's how we sort of broke up the species is the people that share a common evolution, like where they came from, and then also the ability to to procreate, have children. So you start out basically with the species, and then you can build out into different heritages from there. So Paul, roll a 1d10 and let's see what you got.
A 6.
6. So you are Terrian, which means you were born in the world of Athles. The elves call it Euteria. And so that from there, as you can see, it says proceed to table LT1, which is right on the next table. Now, one of the other things that I did with this is I want everyone to play whatever type of character they want in my games, but these tables can also show you how common certain things are. So as you can see here, you have to roll a 10 out of 10 to play an elf, which means that in the species that's in the world, it's very rare to see elves. Now, if your whole party wants to be elves, go for it. I have a whole party of elflings right now, which is a whole lot of fun, but I don't, in this table, it can sort of show you, oh, well, we're not there's not elflings all over the place, but, we're still more common than elves. So these tables can also sort of lead to some more information that way. So head down to LT1, Paul, and roll a D10 again.
Okay. 5.
5. So you are a human. So from there, we head to table LT2, it says.
I think that's a typo.
Oh, fixed. All right. Is that right? Oh, they're all messed up. Okay. This is why I normally have editors, because I am bad at making things line up like that. All right. So for the humans, what that then goes down into is the cultural background. Now, you can actually roll on this table twice to see what your cultural background is, and also where like your current location is. Now that's going to really depend on how you, where you're playing, where the GM's playing. But I want it to be, you could say, oh, well, my family, my ancestors came from, Ish, but I grew up in the wastelands, so that way you can roll on the table twice and add some more history to your human background. So why don't you give us 2 D12 rolls, Paul?
2 D12s?
Yep.
All right. Got a 5 and a 6.
All right. So that's pretty interesting that your character would start out in Endemos, which is where a lot of our original Pathfinder adventures were set in Fairyport. So that's where your family came from, but then you grew up in the Empire of Ish. So there would be, the way you would look at magic might be different than other people. And I'm trying to, on these tables, to give you a flavor, but not, just dump a whole bunch of info on you, right in the beginning. Basically what I was hoping is people would read this and then they'd take this and go to the Wikipedia on darkreturn.com and look up things more. It's like jumping off points, because like when Ethan got the book, there was none of this information. So he wouldn't even know about Ish or even to look it up, but this would give you, basically a starting point. All right. And then, so from there, Paul, you would head down to table L5.
Okay. So a D10. Four.
Okay. So you are skilled, and you'll gain +1 to a skill. Now the heritages, that's another thing that I've sort of added into 1.5 is you didn't get one that has an expertise, but as we've been playing, one of the things I ran into a lot was people would gain in level and they get more hit points, they get more experience, but having a small amount of skills, I think we have 7 skills in SagaBorn, it led to like, oh, well, acrobatics is me spinning and jumping and riding a horse. And even though I'm riding a horse all the time, my character doesn't really get better at skills. And so I added in expertises because I never feel that skills can really destroy a game. It can just add to your character. So, and my current sideboard game, they spent the past half a year on boats. So they have a much higher expertise for any knowledge checks while on a boat, or any, anything that basically, if they're doing a skill challenge on a boat, then they get an expertise bonus to that skill challenge, which fleshes out the character, but then also makes it, like a little bit more of a skill system without having to have, 500 skills listed out like third edition. But then also game masters could come in and say, you know what, I think there should be an expertise for, handling wild animals. You get a +2 to whenever you're handling wild animals on a skill check. And those things I think could add in and really grow what the character is. So we will stop there, Paul, with your skilled human who has grown up in the Empire of Ish, and we will move to John. Now, since Paul did all the rolls, John, if you want to just pick along on any of these tables instead of rolling, you're welcome to do that as well.
I don't know. That's like a level of adultiness. I don't think I really. I'm going to go ahead and continue to roll.
Okay.
I'm using a dice roller though, so you won't hear clacking. 3, so Tyrion as well, and then also a human. Actually, I'm going to make a decision and go with a dwarf here.
Okay.
So LT3, a new D10. 9, a Greyhelm dwarf, the religious dwarves of the mountains. The people of Greyhelm was closed off from Atheles for hundreds of years until recently. Proceed to table LT4. And that's the heritage bonus. And that's a 2, a craftsman. Nice.
Yeah, so that one's pretty good. You get +1 to your endurance and an expertise in knowledge checks. Once again, all skill checks, but some fun little add-ons there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like that.
All right, so that's the finale for you guys. All right, we'll move on to Dane. Dane, give me a roll or give me a choice.
I am going to roll and see how I feel about it.
Don't you wish you could
that's
say that in your normal game?
That's something I do a lot in life, by the way. I have a thing I call the magic randoms, where if I'm trying to make a decision or I'm trying to come up with an idea, I'll come up with some random way of like with a decision. You roll dice or whatever it is to figure out what you want to do, and then you pay attention to how you feel about it. That's it. It's not that you're using the randoms to get the thing that, maybe it will be that, but you immediately get a gut feeling that you don't get otherwise. It's like if somebody comes in and tells you, this is what you're going to do, either you're going to be like, oh yeah, that's great. Or you're going to get a feeling in your gut that doesn't, you don't like that. So
what
I'm going
the feeling
with that.
in your gut comes later, like after you decided to eat that extra Pop-Tart, and then you're like, oh.
Right. Well, it doesn't work so well with Temptations, but
yeah. Yeah, Laura keeps buying new flavors of Pop-Tarts. We have so many Pop-Tarts.
I should have known that was personal. All right, so D10, 7. That is Faye. I'll go with that. I like that.
All right, then we head down past Tyrion to table F1 under Faye. I'm thinking about graphic design-wise in the book of having sort of lines leading from the tables onto other pages to sort of show you where to go. I'm going to see how that looks. That could just be lines and make it look like a spider web, or it could make it a lot easier.
Is it
also, yeah.
When you have page numbers too, though, you could say go to table F1 on page 7, which is also nice.
I got a 3, but I didn't like it. I'm going with Fawn.
All right. So down to F4.
I've never played a Fawn. Okay, so 10 again. 4. Yep, we'll stick with that.
All right. So you are a Sylvan fawn. Your family was in the forest deep in the mountains during the disappearance. Yeah, fawns actually, they were mentioned in the first edition, and so many people were attracted to the book, people that bought it, and then they came in, they're like, I was really hoping you would tell me more about how to play a fawn in your world. And I realized, like, oh, yeah, you know, I mean, a lot of this, I just put it out there, and, you know, I'm used to people like Ethan that can take it and run with it and do whatever. But then also some people are really interested, like, what is a fawn in your world? And so this at least gives people a jumping off point. So now we head down to table F5 and we decide how you view other species.
Oh, spaced out a second. 8. Perfect.
That's just like you, Dane, sorry. And then the final one is the Fey Heritage bonus.
10. 5. Oh, yeah. That's me.
All right. So besides the hairiness, Danny basically rolled up himself. Meaning that the fawns are hairy and Danny's like a little baby. Actually, I don't know. I haven't been to the beach with you in a long time. All right. So now we got a fawn, a dwarf, and a human. This is already turning out to be an amazing party. Ethan, give us that roll on the first table, or give us a choice.
I'll roll for you. Let's see what I get. All random, all the time. 6. I'm a Terrian.
Tyrion. All right, so we head down to LT1.
LT1, another D10. Will I be a human or will I be a dwarf? Oh, it looks like I'm a dwarf.
Nice.
Paul's the only human. I'm another dwarf. Perfect.
John is technically a human just wearing a fake beard so that he thinks he's a dwarf.
All right, so let's see. If I'm a dwarf, I'm going to come down to the dwarven tables, and I see there's free dwarfs, there's gray helm dwarfs, and dragon dwarfs. And reading these descriptions, I want to choose being a dragon dwarf, just because that sounds like kind of a badass thing. Like, I sort of imagine the hairless dwarves of the far south who constantly struggle against the draconian creatures of their isolated homeland. Like, these are like the dwarves that keep the rest of the continent safe from the dragons, and nobody appreciates them or cares about them or probably respects them. That sounds like it'd be a fun thing to play in this campaign. So I'm going to pick a dragon dwarf.
Well, see, that super excites me because Danny and I have notes about them, like somewhere in our Google Drive. But the reason that came up is I was like, well, you can't just have 2 choices of dwarves. And I was like, oh, let's go for the dragon dwarves because those had some cool notes. I remember that. So I'm already happy about how this is working out.
Let's
head down to that heritage bonus.
All right. So I still just roll the standard Terrian one, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. And I got Wanderer. So I assume this is just going to help me, like, oh yeah, that's why I'm not in Dragon Dwarf land fighting dragons anymore, because I must be some sort of a wanderer. I'm a wandering Dragon Dwarf. So as a wanderer, it looks like I get +1 survival, which is going to be one of my important skills, and once per day I get to re-roll on a knowledge check. So I could be like, oh, I don't remember what that is. Oh, wait, I remember. wait, I do remember after all. That happens in real life sometimes. I was like, oh, what's the name of that guy? He was telling me this story about when there was that big fire, and he was like, oh, yeah, Jerry, the whole thing's... Oh, Jerry! His name's Jerry! Like, that's my knowledge bonus. I get a knowledge reroll once per day.
Wait. You spent your one reroll of the day to remember the guy's name is Jerry?
Hey, man, you don't know what real life is going to hold. You just have to roll your own dice as you go through this world. All right. So it looks like it doesn't tell me to go to another table, but do I need to go to another table to have some sort of background, or Dragon Dwarf and that's it?
Dragon Dwarf and that's it. So
Nice.
one of the things that I'm hoping to do is if this is something that people are very excited about, I can easily start putting out information on the website, but also smaller booklets concerning each of these background paths. Because then it sort of gives me a jumping off point going, oh, let's make another book that talks about these guys and also maybe gives some more tables to roll on if people enjoy this method of character creation.
So, Mike, one of the things that my players ask about that I'll occasionally do is I will either make up NPCs or I will just make up sample characters to share with them. And the only thing that they ever remember about any of it, like they'll look in detail at all the details, but the only thing they'll ever remember is what's like the most ridiculous thing about this character. Like if his name is Wesley Snipes, that's what they'll remember. If he knows Kung Fu, he's Kung Fu guy. If he has a helmet with pointy spikes on it, that's what they'll remember.
Yeah, in writing fiction, writers talk about all the time, like 3 details on a character. That's about all anybody's going to remember anyway. So have 3 big details, and that's going to work really, really well for you.
That's interesting. Normally when I make NPCs, I'm like, what 3 things can I build all of this off of? And I'll, type it down. And yeah, that's a good one. I actually have the opposite of that, in that my big SagaBorn game now that has a lot of lore, my mother basically transcribes, because she's in the group. She plays an old elfling with 1 foot. She transcribes the whole session from a character's point of view. So like sometimes I'm like, all right, Farrellyn, what did this character do? Because you're going to remember better than me, which is pretty neat. All right. So then everyone head down to page 11 and we're going to do Lifepath. So everyone roll a 1d6 for table 1. All right, Paul, what'd you get?
4. I'm a scout.
Scout. John.
1. I'm a warrior.
A warrior. Dane.
6. I'm a mage.
And Ethan.
I got a 6. I'm a dragon dwarf wanderer mage.
All right.
Great.
All right,
Very common among dragon dwarves.
We will do this sort of by group. So first we'll go with John's to the warrior path. So give me a roll of a 1d10 or pick one.
8. Tough life on the street led you to finding jobs that involved your battle instincts. Proceed to history life path. Is that what we're talking about?
No, it was actually the one right above it. W1 to decide if you're a fighter, berserker, or Archeon.
A berserker.
Berserker. All right, so we head down to 3.
Gotcha. All right.
We also moved away from the barbarian thing, since that's not really a word that we want to use, and more berserk. I mean, that's what you're talking about, anyways. Is a word that harnesses the power of rage rather than, I mean, we all want to be Conan sometimes, but that's a choice. That's not a class.
Okay, so with berserker, 7.
All right. So you have a hard time keeping your calm. Also, once again, this has not been edited. This is just, you're seeing pure Mike written down here as on these tables. So that's it, and then you would head down to the history life path. So that's about it for Berserker. Now, at the end here, I'm going to ask for feedback from you guys if you think that some things should be expanded on, and so on, or if you like it sort of short and simple like this, that way players can get through it quicker and start adding in their own details. So now we'll go to Paul with Scout, and that's down on page 13.
Yeah, you might want to switch Scout and Mage since the order of the table up above was the opposite. All right, so a D10. So Rogue or Ranger. I am a Ranger. The Watchers of the Wilds, a hunter and tracker, or a guide through the wastes. The Ranger is at home in the wilds.
All right, table S3 then.
And then your family were hunters and you learned much from their mentorship. Proceed to history.
All right, so just a born outdoorsman.
Woo-woo.
So now we will head up to Mage and go to Dane and Ethan. You guys give me a 1d10 roll.
You know it. Yeah. Oh, 3. 3 for me.
I got a 6, but I'm overriding it. I like Bard.
Oh. No dragon dwarven bards. Too bad. I could have written a song. Oh well. I'll be the wilder.
All right, so Ethan, head down to table M2.
All right. Choose my wilder background. Let's find out. Am I secret or am I a student? What did I do? Student. I'm a student. My magic is innate, but I studied under another wilder. So I go to my history life path.
All right, and Danny, roll on your bard, the bard chart.
All right, yeah, I got a 2. That looks good to me. Your musical talents have always put a coin in your pocket. Hard work and practice have honed your skill. That should be have honed your skills, but you have learned much of what you know by yourself.
All right, just like you and guitar. Well, you had a couple good mentors along the way, but
I did.
all right. So we got so far so good. I mean, we've had a couple choices, but so far fate has given us a pretty diverse party here. So everyone head down to page 14 for History Life Path. Now this one gives it's just a couple of tables. I don't know if we should expand it more, if that's something that you guys think would be better in a side book. So we'll roll down it and then go from there. So first, everyone roll a 1d6. All right, Paul.
An enemy.
All right, John.
A mentor.
A mentor. Dane.
A friend.
Friend. And Ethan.
I also have a mentor.
A mentor. And does that fit with what you rolled for Wilder? Yeah, that you studied under someone. So
Yeah, I studied under someone. It was a mentor.
and they were important. So that's working.
That jives. Nice.
Fate is smiling upon your character creation.
Yeah, and if it didn't jive, I could just choose something else from the list.
Exactly. All right, family. So roll another 1d6. Paul.
They make enough to scrape by, but are happy and supportive.
Maybe the rarest of all D&D backgrounds. Your parents are alive and they're supportive? What? That is not an option in the Game of Thrones role-playing system ever. Happy and supportive are not found in that document.
It is if you're Ned Stark, you're just going to lose your head real fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ned was happy and supportive, and then he died.
Yeah, but
Right,
Ned,
so that's the first one, is they're alive. All right, John, what'd you roll?
I do not know my family.
All right. Maybe that's why you have such a hard time holding the rage in.
It might also be why he's the mentor figure is so important to him.
Exactly. Awesome. Dane.
I don't know my family either, which is why the most important person to me is my friend.
Very nice. And Ethan.
My family has lost everything and search for ways to survive, which is why I'm a wanderer.
It's those damn dragons, man.
You know, they, you know, they'll figure it out. They're dwarves after all. They don't have the problems of the fawns where they smell bad with that terrible deer body odor just all over them. They don't have the problems that those humans do where they're tall and everything that come by wants to chop their head off. They're dwarves. They'll figure it out. What's a little dragon? What's a little dragon?
We don't hit our heads on everything.
That's right.
Next one down. So religion. I was unsure of putting this in the core book. I think religion can definitely define the way the world is, and some of the people in my adventures always noted that I didn't bring up the church or religious beliefs, probably because in my personal life, like, that might not be such an overarching thing that is in the forefront of my mind. So we can roll on this or choose. How do you guys feel about having religion in here, in basically such a short history life path? Like, do you think that that's something that's important? Do you think it's a side book?
Necessary.
The only thing that makes me think religion might be important is we do have in John a Greyhelm dwarf in the party. And as I understand from reading this, that Greyhelm dwarves, that's like a huge religious thing. Like, religion's probably going to be a part of his life. So I don't know if we want to play with that, but it seems like what we've rolled so far indicates that at least religion should be something that exists and plays a role.
Well, I think for all of us, our religious beliefs it's foundational. It's the lens that you see the world through.
It's one of the lenses, yeah. But yeah, I would agree.
I mean, look, I might see the world through the lenses of dragons. Like, that's that. Well, I didn't need additional lore, so I don't know.
I don't think this is a matter of. Well, I guess here it is. The first one, at least, is not a matter of choosing a religion. It's how you feel about religion, I think. It's a little more fundamental than what God do you believe in or something like that. It's, do you believe in gods? Do you believe in one or more? I think that at least that much, I think, is necessary.
Well, I'll roll it, and then I'll tell you what I think.
And I did make a note that I do need to add a short description next to every deity here, because right now it's just a list of names. So everyone roll a D20.
Well, first a D10, right?
Oh yeah, first a D10 if you want to roll to find out.
Yeah, and I'm polytheistic because, of course, I am. I'm a fawn. That is what I rolled, though.
Paul, what'd you roll?
I am monotheistic.
All right. John?
Polytheistic as well.
And Ethan?
I rolled a 10. I'm an agnostic. I get attacked by these godlike creatures all day and all night, and I don't believe in anything. Or I don't know if I believe in anything.
All right. I think you guys just showed me how important this needs to be in here, because I can imagine if I was playing with this group that John's Greyhelm dwarf and the Dragon dwarf, especially with John and Ethan playing it, would get into such discussions that me as GM, I wouldn't even have to do anything other than sit back and listen to you guys argue about who is right or wrong on their view in the universe. So I definitely do like this.
Look, I don't know what's right or wrong. I just know that someone needs to chop those dragons down to size.
Or take the dragons, Ethan, and teach them a good skill that they can hone, like fishing.
I don't know what you're talking about. Mike and I played a campaign, and Dane was in on it also, where we had these little kids come and try and pickpocket us in a market, and instead of turning them over to the authorities or anything else, we just basically kidnapped them and forced them to apprentice under us until they had learned a skill and could survive on their own. And Mike just thought that was one of the most like ridiculous but also like legendary campaign moments ever.
It was interesting.
Yeah, I was afraid dragging the pickpockets into the woods, and then you're like, build a stove, and I'm like, what? Where is this going? All right, so now we roll
Mike,
a D20.
Mike, I'm sorry to jump in. There's one issue with this, and I don't know the answer, but I think we'll have to think it through. If you choose agnostic, you can probably skip this table, so we might want to mention that. But if you choose monotheistic, this is a pantheon here, right? Like you wouldn't believe in just one of these and then not believe the others exist. You might
I don't know. Have you read Herodotus, Danny? Because, you know, the Greeks, the ancient Greeks, they're super polytheistic. But they talked about monotheistic religions, and Herodotus was pretty straightforward about it. He was like, yeah, like these monotheistic, they have only Zeus. They're like, Zeus is all the gods, and all the other ones are fake. So I don't know.
But Zeus was at the top of
being like, oh, Rindelbach is my god, and all the other gods are just fake incarnations of Rindelbach.
Right.
So
yeah, but Zeus was at the top of the pantheon. I don't think, generally speaking, any one of these would be a monotheistic god. I may be wrong. I'm just throwing it out that we might want to think about how we lay this out.
So in some of the churches that I've already written, the creator is God, and the rest of them are angels or demigods beneath the creator. But those churches, the Unalisa Church, believes that the creator basically created and left. So they worship him as like the creator, the main god, and the rest don't have the power that he does, but they don't believe that he's still floating around, though there's another religion that does. So this is a story, you know, this is a thing that blows out into a bunch of different pathways, which I think the Religions of the Dark Return would be definitely an interesting book that you could jump into a whole bunch of different, like, how do the fawns view this? You know, a lot of this is taken down from the elves in the fiction. And so it's like, how exactly do the elves believe in this? You know, maybe they believe that one group believes that Tantheus killed the creator and then he took on the mantle of God. So it would just give us a whole lot to write from. And then, but you're right. We should have a little bit in here to give people more to jump off from.
Well, I think what might solve it is, because I don't think, I like everything you're saying, but I think for this stage of character creation, simple is better. I like it how we have it. The one thing we might do is say, if you choose monotheistic, you're probably going to believe in the creator. If you choose polytheistic, choose which god you tend to worship or something. And then you steer them to this table. And if they choose agnostic, they're done. Something like that.
So you don't want agnostic to like specifically choose which god we would worship culturally if we did believe in God, but we're not sure that we do. So you don't want me to be like, you know,
well, I think you could.
The mentor, they worship Trund, but I'm like, I think they just made Trund up. What do you guys think?
I'm not even touching this one. I think
you believe in everything, though.
Well, I think giving people a little bit, a couple of choices, and then the possibility of doing some more stuff in depth later if people want to go further into depth.
Well, for example, if someone is agnostic and then they roll up a deity have been raised by a family or someone who believed in
Right.
that deity, and then over time they became agnostic because they just moved away from it. So I think giving people the ability to roll this stuff allows it gives them that little push that can help them like flesh the story out around it.
And the other thing is, at some point, maybe a discussion, do we really mean agnostic, or do we mean just not practicing?
Right.
Or do you want to even have that difference?
Oh, do you want to break down agnostic into like hardcore atheist, like previous believer, possible new convert?
I think the trick is just going to be to word it where it sounds very open. These are just some basic directional guidelines for you as possibilities, because I am scared of getting into the weeds. We could really go overboard with the religious aspects of the game at this stage.
We could go overboard on any aspect. It's not just going to be religion, but yeah, religion tends to be a hot topic for a lot of people.
And I wrote down too something that's very important, probably to note here. That's a rarity I feel in SagaBorn, is that no powers or class abilities come from gods in this world. There is no divine magic. So if you're coming in from like 5th edition or other systems where gods grant powers, you're going to be like, oh, this is a huge decision. Well, these things don't play into the power of the world at all. Now you can be a mage and say, my god gives me this power, but there is no spell that calls down an avatar of the god to answer questions, which is, a huge thing in most role-playing games.
Well, Mike, you're saying, power doesn't come from the gods, but what about, from the church, political power, et cetera, et cetera. So that's something else to shelve for later.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Yeah, definitely explain that it's more of the power of the churches and the gods would come from the role-playing side of it than from the gaming side of it, the number crunchy side. And then the last chart that we will roll on. Oh, wait, did I get to everybody? No, nobody rolled gods.
I don't think we got anybody on this one, did we?
Yeah, no, we didn't. All right. Everyone tell me, start out with Paul. Tell me what you got, and I'll tell you what that god is.
Tantheus.
Okay, so sort of the knight paladin god, the one that is the bringer of light. The elves hold Tantheus in very high regard. The elves believe that part of Tantheus' song is what brought them to the world. John, what did you get?
Rom, so a Ferengi?
Rom is the god of war.
Oh, there's a shock. A metalsmith berserker who worships the god of war and has a bad temper.
Writes itself.
It really does.
Dane.
Rindelbach.
All right. Once again, sort of fitting with your background. Rindelbach is the trickster god. Not good or not. Well, we don't use words like good or evil in SagaBorn ever. He's definitely not order. He'd definitely be more chaos. So yeah, trickster god, that works for Danny. Ethan.
I rolled Trund.
All right. So the creator of the world, the smith god, also, and this might be interesting in that he was the one that forged iron and gave it the power to stop magic. So that would be an interesting thing for a mage, right?
A mage, an agnostic mage. Interesting.
But you could go many ways. I came up with a group of Archeons who wore iron. Well, they were part Archeon and part mage, and they wore iron to hurt themselves when they cast spells because they felt they should be punished for using magic, but they would still use magic. You could go lots of different ways on that one. And then This
But
last
being
one,
agnostic is tough. Look, I don't believe in Trund, but sometimes I do.
that could be true. I mean, when your magic is stopped by iron, you have to say, where did this come from? Seeing that science is not really an answer in this world because science doesn't work right.
No. But look, you got to stop the dragon somehow, and if magic doesn't work, you use the iron. That's all you got.
There you go.
Yeah.
And then the last chart we got here is how you feel about magic. And this is, this one's almost so important. It's almost like you should choose rather than rolling, but, we've had such good luck with rolling. So let's start out with that. We'll do Dane's approach of roll and see how it makes you feel.
What does a 10 plus mean, by the way?
Because of dwarves.
Yeah. Dwarves so elves, fauns, and elflings don't have to roll on the chart because their culture supports and celebrates magic. And then dwarves can't be opposed. I mean, once again, you can choose this. So if you want your dwarf to oppose magic, but what I was trying to show here is that how the cultures that these creatures came from believe in this by default. So, Paul, where do you think you would go with this?
I rolled a 5.
A 5, so magic makes you uncomfortable. Do you think that could fit in with your backstory?
Yeah. From Ish, right?
That is true. It is a very serious thing down there. There's no random mages running around that aren't being chased after. John.
Rolled a 10, so open-minded about magic, and knows to use it.
You are the most open-minded about magic there can be.
I'm the most open-minded, broad-shouldered, short guy on the planet.
There's lots of things that make John mad, but not magic. I'm sort of okay with that. All right, Dane, what'd you get?
I actually rolled a 10, but it was redundant because I'm a faun and my culture supports and celebrates magic.
All right, and Ethan.
I rolled a 2, so with the dwarven bonus, I get a +4, so magic makes me uncomfortable. Which, I think for a magic-using dwarf who, doesn't believe, but kind of believes in this Smith god that hates magic, that it kind of makes sense that magic would make me uncomfortable. So without religion, this would make no sense. But with religion, I can be conflicted. I can be made uncomfortable by magic.
I think even without religion, it can make sense. Like, I know I'm a decent person. I can use magic. I don't know about those other people. You see it all the time with bigots who end up doing things that seem counter to the fact that they are.
So you're saying for role-playing purposes, I should embrace the cognitive dissonance and just barrel unabated down that road.
Yes, I'm actually.
Well, when I use magic, it's different. But when he uses magic, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah,
that's interesting. That's
the opposite. I was thinking that every time you cast,
bringing the real element of fantasy into this.
You could be like a self-hating mage.
Flogs himself with iron chains.
Yeah, I don't need to be the Opus Dei of dragon dwarves.
All right, so we've run through these charts. What do you guys feel of this system and how it's laid out?
I mean, the main thing is every step of the way, it lets you make a decision if you want to keep the die roll or not. I feel like it's very good because it can help break you out of your comfort zone by essentially putting you in a position where you have to role play something that may not have been your first choice, which I think is always good.
I think at the end of this, I have a good outline of a character where I can fill in the details, or me and the GM together can fill in additional details to sort of flesh this character out. I have to say that this is sort of a reverse order of how I'm used to doing things in RPGs, because I'm kind of used to, oh, you either start with just a very basic idea of like, this is the character type or class that I'm going to be. And then the first thing you do is you go to, what are my stats? What are my scores? What are my abilities? What am I good at? What am I bad at? This kind of puts you into a different frame of mind, that your character is largely fleshed out first. And only after that are we actually going to go to, what is my character good at? What is my character bad at? What are my skills, talents, and abilities? It's kind of interesting to sort of have the outline of the character before you know anything about the character's physical and mental abilities.
I also think that doing this as a group often also can make a lot of sense, because then you can start figuring out how characters know each other or relationships between characters, etc., before you even start rolling any dice as far as attributes, etc. So I think it's a great tool, and I think doing this before I think doing this as the beginning of character generation makes a lot of sense.
When I make characters, I roll them up. Yeah, I know what they're good at, things like that. I might come up with some loose backstory. And then from there, I figure out who is this person as I go. And, I might have one or two characteristics picked out. This is the best I've ever known a character before I started playing.
Yeah.
And he's interesting, and he's stuff I probably wouldn't have just chosen had none of this existed. Also, now I have to imagine this, but if I imagine that I'm completely unfamiliar with the world and the system, I just got the SagaBorn book and with a group of friends, and we're figuring it out. Well, now in a very easy, simple to follow way, I've already got my foot in the water a little bit. I sort of know what my character feels like potentially. I have some sense of the world, like you were saying earlier, what's common, what's not. Little bit about the deities. Obviously, information still has to be filled in. But I do think, and you mentioned this at the beginning, that you wanted to get a sense of how we feel about how much information you're giving. And I think I wouldn't touch a thing personally, probably, because I think there's a balance that you have to find where you don't want to overwhelm people before they get to actually start playing. You want them just to be able to, go a straight line from starting character creation, and very soon afterwards they're playing the game. But at the same time, you want to give them enough that it gives that flavor, and I think this does it. There might be some tweaks, but overall, I think this is perfect.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know that the charts need to be any more detailed, but some explanations, like, hey, this was a conversation we had really quickly about what agnostic might mean. Here's some ideas. This is what it might mean to be monotheistic. This is what it might mean to be polytheistic, etc. So just some general notes to allow the group and the group to make some decisions together makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I agree. And to clarify, what I meant is where there are descriptions, I think they're the right length.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think you could essentially make a glossary or something, an appendix at the end where you go into more detail. So that way, for the people that want that detail, they can go. It's not going to like add in the middle of the process. It will be, if they want to do it, it'll say, go to this page at the end of the book for more information.
So right after we finish the Lifepath, it goes into species biology and heritage, and it goes into much more depth of like, here's what it is to be an elfling, here's what it is to be a feral elfling, fawns and so on. And then
you might want to you can do anchor links, right? maybe as the person is going down, you can say, if you can, maybe you could put a little link in there to scroll down to if they want to learn more.
Right. So with all the books I've been reading lately, for a long time I didn't use PDFs for role-playing books, and now that's pretty much all I use. And I'm realizing how important it is to have links for when something's mentioned, that you click it and it goes to the thing that I want to know, especially in a book that may not be laid out very well. Like, there's a lot of 600-page role-playing books, and you're like, where did they put this thing again? If you can click and go to it, like, that is wonderful.
Yeah, I don't know if this is how you're doing it or not, but you, just in case people, I don't know if there's a plan to sell any print on this, but definitely some people might print it out, and so you might say, like, you know, for more information, go to page 67, and then that gets linked, maybe.
Yeah, I'm getting very excited about 1.5. You know, I almost hate calling it 1.5, but I don't know what to call it, you know, to let people know that this is like the one that comes after. That I want to do a print book, and I want to do like basically all of my vision of the world, where I do every drawing that's in the book. You know, well, Paul will have some drawings as well, but really use this as like, here's an exhibition of my world, my rules, and my art all in one in this cool hardcover book, you know. And at this point, it's been over 3 years since the original book came out, so it's not like I'm putting out a new book right away, because it's going to be a couple years before it's all put together.
I mean, but even if you release this book, let's say a month after the first one, you're also letting people download it for free. So like, if someone is a true collector that wants to have a physical book, sure, but it's not like you're like forcing people to be like, haha, now you have to get rid of your old books and all your old miniatures and move to this new system.
Yeah, well, a lot of people get FOMO, so I don't want to like prey on that sort. I never liked the whole money thing anyways, but I want to have a really good book. The next book I do, I want to do offset printing and everything, so it's got to be a more important campaign, because I don't want to give Ingram any more of my money, and I want to actually go to a printer that can give me a book that looks good without all the struggles of having 100 books that are printed poorly.
Yeah, that was rough, and I don't blame you.
Yeah.
So something that I've been thinking about since Danny brought it up a while ago is that if you wanted like a streamlined version of this, because some players did feel like it was too much, I think you could cut the religion out, and I don't think you would lose very much the way you would lose something if you cut anything else out, because those appear to be integral parts of the character and they affect other things. I don't see where the religion does. One thing that I notice is very different from 1.0 versus 1.5 is as far as the elements go, acid was a very important element early on in the first incarnation of SagaBorn, and I see now that acid doesn't even exist as one of the elementals that's out there. And so I was curious if that was done on purpose, or if you were just like, I thought about the elements. Who needs acid? I was just watching Pikachu. I was like, yeah, you put electricity in there too, but what's I'm curious about that.
So a lot of, I was building off of 3.5 heavily in the first edition. A lot of spells were copied and pasted over. And as we developed from 1.0, I started doing a lot more like, how do I see this in my fiction? How do I define my fiction into a rule, rather than taking a rule set that's already there and pushing my fiction into it? And so when I described magic, no mages had a elemental bond with acid. It was these other elements, which came to the having an elemental focus, where every mage now has it does nothing power wise, but it adds to the story. Like, I have an elfling that is she's all about earth magic. So she has a bracelet of all these rocks that she counts off on when she's using her earth magic, or when she learned how to deal with fire, she had an amulet that she uses as her focus for the fire. And once I went that way, I sort of moved away from, I think mainly because like a lot of the elements I feel are actually part of the human body, but like, we're not xenomorphs, so we don't really have acid. And I didn't find that connection. In fact, I was criticized because people had connected to water. I think I said that you put a personal fluid into a vessel, and everyone read too much into putting fluid into a vessel. And so I had to, I don't know if I reworded that or I just said, you know what, I'm writing stuff with Dane. He's fine with fluids being mentioned a lot.
Think Katara, not gross.
Well, whenever people start reviewing stuff on the internet, it always goes to gross first, right?
I mean, I have played Telestrations Against Humanity with you, so it does go pretty fast.
Well, I would like to say normally that's my wife sitting next to me. Like we can almost trace every one of those books that when they go bad, it goes back to Laura.
when the Telestration books break bad, that's
yeah. Whenever the thing on the page explodes into fluids, that's always Laura. All right. Well, cool. Thank you guys so much. This showed me a lot. I got some good notes, some things I need to go work on and rearrange or add some explanations. But I think it went pretty smoothly. I feel like you guys built some cool Dark Return characters, and that like we could really start up with a session in a week if we wanted to with these guys.
Do we need to pick names?
Let's finish out this video with everyone picking a name for their character.
Can I roll a dice for this?
Yeah, it's called Random Name Generator online.
I'll let other people go first.
I'll jump in. I'm Bragar, the Sylvan Chaos Fawn Mage Bard, with a friend as the most important person in my life because I don't have a family and I worship Rindelbach.
So what was the name again?
Bragar.
Nice.
I'm going to go with Brolac Bristlethane. And thank God for random generators.
Nice.
Gosh,
All right, I'm going to call my dragon dwarf Luda Drac.
Is that with a C or a K?
2 Ks.
2 Ks. There we go. Now we know
Luda
it's fantasy.
Drac.
Does it have any weird symbols above the A's? Because that also makes it more fantasy.
Oh, you can put an umlaut over the second A, over the A in Drac.
Oh, there we go. That made it.
Yeah.
All right, Paul, you're finishing it out.
I am Shadow Step, the Terran Ranger. Sneaking through the woods, even though I grew up in a giant, I think, monstrous city. Well, I assume Ish is more than just a city, right?
No, it's a whole empire. It's maybe the largest of all the nations, and the one that's held together the most. It's one of the least damaged ones from the Great War and the disappearance. All right. Well, I got got some good notes. So I was looking at the private chat, and I saw that Ethan was afraid that Paul might bring up some weird names.
I don't even remember that, Ethan.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Then it never happened.
It never happened. All right. Well, thanks everybody that joined us, watched on the broadcast. Thank you so much to Paul, John, Dane, and Ethan. I'm so glad that you guys joined me today for this first run through the Dark Return Lifepath. So if anyone has any things that they want to shout out to, like some stuff that they're working on that they'd like viewers to know about, this is the time to do it.
All right.
Watch out, my man. Those ridiculous in the south looking out for Drake and it's wow, these dragons out all on the prowl. If you hold the scale steady, I'm gonna milk the cow.
All right. It doesn't end better than that. All right. Thanks everyone for joining us. And we'll see you next time.